Good evening, and welcome to the Burbank Police Commission meeting for Wednesday, January 17th, 2024. We will go ahead and start with a call to order and roll call. Ms. Nakamura?
Here.
Chair Coombs?
Here?
Commissioner Ellman is absent. Commissioner Feruzin? Commissioner Hakobian?
Present.
Commissioner McKenna?
Present.
Commissioner Wenzel?
Here.
Thank you, Ms. Nakamura. The public comment period will be upcoming in a few moments. For community members here in person, please complete the speaker's card and hand to staff to our right. For members who wish to phone in comments, please call 818-238-3335. Callers will be placed in a queue until all in-person comments have been received. And we'll go ahead and have you, Paul, yes.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Paul. So we're going to move on to item C, which is commission announcements and reporting out by commissioners and ad hoc subcommittees. And if it's okay, we'll go ahead and start to my right and work our way across.
Certainly. I only have one thing to mention. I did attend, and it's been some time since we've met, but I attended the Matthew Pavelka Flag Memorial in November. And it was an excellent tribute. It was also raining that day, which, by the way, it was raining 20 years ago that day.
Thank you, Mike. Ann?
I had a great time at Holiday in the Park. It was jammed. It was fun. It was not hot. It was not cold. I loved it. I loved that everybody got along. I took my grandkids, of course, and they made friends with everybody. But it was wonderful. It was well attended, and it was relaxing. Everybody got along. I also attended the gun buyback. You attended also, and I learned an awful lot. I was afraid that it was going to be not well attended, but it seemed like those cars just kept coming in. We were fortunate to go downstairs to see the whole procedure of how the guns are taken safely out of the trunk, checked. Downstairs, very organized. Downstairs in the police department, very organized with the whole process. I was very pleased as a citizen to see that.
Thank you, Ann. I also attended the gun buyback on December 9th. This is an upcoming piece, but I'd signed up for the homeless count coming up on January 23rd with another commissioner. Was able to attend the Matthew Pavelka Flag Memorial in November, and then also got a chance to attend Holiday in the Park as well. So it's been a little bit busy, and I'm glad to be back with everybody. Layla? Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Not too much, but was also at the Holiday in the Park event, which was really great and very well attended. And as you mentioned, really calm, relaxing. You know, and I had my kids there, and it was great. And saw many BPD officers there, and that was great. Just either walking around or just with the vehicles and things like that. So it was a great event. Thanks.
Paul?
I regret that I missed the November meeting and the flagpole dedication. It was something I really wanted to be part of, but I was at the NACOL convention in Chicago. I will tell you that my overall assessment of that is that we were doing a lot of things right. Ironically, they brought up things like the vehicle for transporting people with trauma or mental illness. We're ahead of the game on that, and there were very few things that were out of line with our practices. I will say, and I actually spoke to James as coming home, I was moved by the trauma that I felt that people had. And I spoke to our officer who's working with our mental health team, saying that maybe the follow-up for the victims of the trauma, not necessarily the perpetrators. But that was something that, and then other than that, I made a point of spending time with both the body cam people and the taser people to learn the ins and outs, the particulars. For instance, the gentleman who asked the question about why are they allowed to turn the sound off? I asked the people who manufacture them, what's your brains, and there were logical reasons for all these things when you ask the right questions. So it was a very rewarding experience. Thank you for the opportunity, and I also will be part of the homeless account.
Great. And thank you for attending on our behalf. Thank you. Romik?
So I also attended the Matthew Pavelka flag ceremony. It was a very beautiful ceremony put on by the Burbank Police Foundation. And I also attended Holiday in the Park. As everyone said, it was well attended. It was just wonderful seeing such great energy and so much excitement and happiness. And I also attended the gun buyback program with James and Ann. Wonderful. I went the year before. Was it the year before or earlier the year? The year before. Wow, it's been 2 years. Great to see different types of rifles coming in versus what we saw the year before. And overall, just happy New Year to the department. Great to see everyone again and excited for this year.
Great. Thank you, Romik. So we're going to move on to item D, which is oral communications. And so do we have any communication cards, any presentations in the audience? No? Okay. So we're going to move to if there's any callers calling in.
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. So what we'll do is, this is also an opportunity where if any of us received any emails that we wanted to address, we can address that as well. I do have one that I wanted to bring up. I received an email from a person by the name of Geneva Solomon, who reached out to me and is interested in pursuing the possibility of doing a temporary safe surrender for firearms program. And so she's interested in partnering with members of the commission if we're interested. This would involve the temporary turning over of firearms where they would be safely stored by any gun stores in Burbank that would be interested in participating. So I told her I would let folks here know that I received that email and that we might want to agenda that for a future discussion. That's the only communication I received specifically to me. Any other communication that folks wanted to share via email? No? Okay.
Just the emails that Sergeant Turner has sent out for the letters to the editor and things. And I just wish that we could address some of those things, because some of them, if the person participated or attended or watched these, their questions would be answered.
Yeah. Thank you for that. All right, with that, we will go ahead and move on. So hopefully everybody got a chance to look at the minutes from November. So item F is approval of minutes from November 15th, 2023. So while we do try to use the consensus model, we do have to vote on certain things. And so we need to go ahead, assuming that everybody's gotten a chance to review that, if I can get a motion to approve the minutes from November. We have Romik, motion to approve. We have
Second.
Mike Chapman seconding that. So all in favor of approving the minutes from November, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? One abstention? Okay. So they pass with one abstention. Thank you. All right. So now we're moving on to items of business, and we have two general items of business followed by general announcements from the chief. The first item is presentation, discussions, and recommendation, if any, if applicable, on DUI stats and the strategies and enforcement efforts affected during the holiday season, Thanksgiving through New Year's Day. And I believe we have Officer Christopher Hensley with us. So Officer Hensley, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Coombs.
Call me James.
James, all right. And the Police Commission. If I may have the PowerPoint, please. My name is Chris Hensley. I've been with the Burbank Police Department since 2007. I've been assigned to the Traffic Bureau as a motor officer since 2012. As a motor officer, my primary function is traffic enforcement as well as traffic accident investigation. I'm going to speak to you guys today about DUI enforcement, statistics and strategies from Thanksgiving of last year to January 1st of this year, so the big holiday season. Today we're going to discuss DUI enforcement and our strategies, overall some statistics in regards to DUI, and then what the department's doing moving forward. This is just a kind of a snapshot for DUI collisions and DUI-related arrests. Sorry about that.
No problem.
So from 2018, actually prior to 2018 up till 2019, the numbers were pretty consistent for the department. our arrests related to DUI traffic collisions and our just straight DUI arrests the numbers were pretty similar. Now, coming into 2020, a lot of things changed. We had the stay-at-home orders. There were some new laws regarding marijuana. There's restaurants were obviously closed. People weren't able to go out and drink and then drive home. So a lot of people end up staying home, ordering food in, ordering alcohol to the house. Remember, we could do that. So our numbers went down a little bit. Now, coming into 2021, we anticipated that people would be back out again. And they'd be out drinking, going to restaurants, coming home, just more out in public since they hadn't been able to do that in 2020. And from 2020 to 2021, we did see an increase. There was a 63% increase in DUI traffic collisions and a 29% increase in DUI arrests. That's something that the department saw coming, and they were ready for that. We created a DUI team, which is slotted for 4 officers. We're staffing it with 2 at the time. And that was knowing that we were going to have an increase in that type of activity. So from 2021 to 2022, we saw a 5.3% decrease in DUI traffic collisions and a 10.3% increase in DUI arrests. And then from 2022 to 2023, we saw a 9% decrease in DUI traffic collisions, and we saw a 2.7% decrease in arrests. Every year things change, but we obviously know that as coming out of 2020, things are starting to normalize and get a little back to normal. In regards to fatal traffic collisions, in 2021, the city of Burbank had 1. In the county of Los Angeles, they had almost 800, and the state of California, almost 4,000. Nationwide, they had almost 40,000. So it's something that's going on. It's a problem across the United States, not just here in Burbank. When it comes to DUI strategies, our number 1 strategy is high visibility saturation patrols. We try to have officers out and about, visible, and around the locations that are serving alcohol or we know that people come into town to drink at. And we try to have officers looking for DUI drivers, impaired drivers, to make the DUI arrests. We also publicize our DUI checkpoints quite a bit. Prior to the checkpoint even coming out, we send a bulletin out that PIO sends to everyone in the city, as well as to the local newspapers, advertising the DUI checkpoint is going to be held in the city. After the checkpoint, we put out numbers of how the amount of cars that were screened, as well as if citations were issued or arrests were made. I think we do a pretty good job at publicizing the DUI checkpoints because we actually get people who come into the checkpoint just to see what it's like. So people know it's there, they want to see, they want to experience it, so I think we do a decent job at getting it out there. With knowledge of drinking establishments, when new restaurants come into town, new places that serve alcohol, officers are made aware of that, keep an eye on that, try to have some enforcement related to that type of new business coming in. Something new with our OTS grant is a Know Your Limit education campaign. So that is going to be where officers are going to go out to different drinking establishments with preliminary breath tests, which I have here. And if people are out drinking, having a beer or 2, we'll just ask them, hey, if you blow into this, what do you think your blood alcohol concentration would be? And if, they do it, there's no consequence to it, and they can see right there on the spot what their blood alcohol level is. And that hopefully gives them an idea on whether or not, they thought they had too much, they didn't think they did, or maybe they shouldn't drive home that night. So that's an educational campaign, no enforcement aspect to that, but it's good for people in the community to see that. School-based instruction, we've partnered with Burbank Unified School District. Our school resource officers, as well as some motor officers, are part of a mindfulness for young drivers campaign, where they talk about the driver safety, and that ranges from DUIs, involving alcohol, involving drugs, as well as just reckless driving, speeding vehicles, all the things that come with driving and being a youth. That's how the high schools, and that's been pretty successful so far. Another one of our strategies is collaborating with other law enforcement agencies. We get a grant from OTS, and that grant, if we have that grant and another agency also has that grant, we can work with them at their DUI checkpoints, their saturation patrols, and they can work with us on ours. So we like to collaborate with them to see what they're doing, to share what we're doing, and make sure we're doing have the best practices. These are just signs of impaired driving. I'm sure if you close your eyes and you thought of what an impaired driver looked like, things that you would probably see are probably on this list. I won't go through the whole list, but something where they're driving too slow, maybe driving too fast, turning too wide. Those are things that officers are looking for when they're out and about on patrol, even when they're not specifically looking for DUI drivers in the sense of a saturation patrol, but just on patrol on a daily shift. So from Thanksgiving of last year to January 1st of this year, the department made 31 DUI arrests, and 33 of those arrests were for DUI alcohol. And then 5 of those arrests were a combination of DUI drugs and alcohol. And then 10 of those arrests involved traffic collisions. So a good amount of arrests for a very short period of time, especially the observed arrests as opposed to just for calls for service in regards to a traffic collision. And then in 2024, we're actually getting $190,000 from OTS. That's an increase from last year. That's going to fund more DUI checkpoints. This past year, we were able to have 3 officers become drug recognition experts. It's a pretty strenuous class, and 3 officers completed that. We're hoping to send more officers again this year. That funding also allows us to purchase the PBT that I have here, as well as the LiDAR device that we use to use for speed enforcement all the time. Obviously, both those things are useful when it comes to DUIs, but the OTS grant helps pay for those types of things so that every officer have one. And just a quick thing on how DUI arrests affect the drivers. Average cost for a DUI just itself is about $13,500, give or take the extent at which someone defends themselves, hires a private attorney, that type of thing. 0.08 is the legal limit for 21-year-old. 0.04 for anyone operating a commercial vehicle. And then 0.01, basically meaning zero tolerance for people under the age of 21. Overall, it could cost you about $45,000 with fees, with classes at the court mandates, different things outside of the police department, but it's a pretty big expense.
New video this morning of a violent crash in Glendale that left 1 person dead, 2 others injured. It happened last night near the corner of Elm Avenue and Glen Oaks Boulevard. Surveillance video captures the moment that a car crosses over the center median and then slams into a silver sedan, killing the passenger inside. It's unclear what caused the initial car to veer into the opposing lanes of traffic. Now, the status of the 2 people injured also unknown.
And that collision was a DUI-related collision. So that was just right here in Glendale, just outside the city. Moving forward, the department's plan is more training in DUIs for officers. With OTS, that's allowing us to provide advanced officer DUI training to anyone in patrol, not just people in the traffic bureau. So that gets a lot more officers out there and gets them with a lot of the newest training. Community engagement and education, kind of like what we did with mindfulness for youthful drivers, the Know Your Limit, DUI checkpoints, just letting folks know that we're out here enforcing DUI laws. And saturation patrols, where we're very effective, we're going to increase those, hopefully with the grant funding, as well as additional technology, whether that's PBTs, different machines, the latest and greatest. We're going to try to acquire the type of material with OTS. Looking forward, we want to collaborate with our partner law enforcement agencies, and sometimes we inadvertently partner with Glendale, where we'll do a DUI checkpoint on Glen Oaks, and we're on the southbound side, and Glendale's doing it the same day, and they're on the northbound side. So it kind of creates a partnership, and it's nice to bounce things back and forth with them and see how successful they were doing a checkpoint on the same day and same time. And then also to work with our legislators and prosecutors, just to ensure that people who are arrested for DUI are held accountable for what they've done. And any questions?
Thank you. We'll open it up, and do we have anybody that wants to start out with questions?
I have two, so I
Let's
can
go
do
ahead.
one and then wait.
Go ahead, Ann.
It was hard to see the statistics, but I'm wondering, is there a correlation between the DUI collisions and arrest? In other words, I presume not, but every collision that is due to drunk driving does not necessarily result in an arrest.
No, if the collision involves a drunk driver, then the drunk driver will be arrested.
Okay, so I wasn't sure then trying to look at the percentages. All righty, good.
So and the DUI arrest would would be separate of, or they could be in addition to the collision. So just if an officer observes a DUI driver and arrests him without a collision, that's why that number is different from the collision.
Should I ask my second?
Yeah, go ahead. Go
Okay.
ahead.
My second question, I think that the going into bars, restaurants, and offering people, so the voluntary, the breath test?
Yes.
Okay. How do you ensure, devil's advocate?
Okay.
I would think, oh, no, I'm not going to do this. They could get me. How do you let people know, hey, this is voluntary. There's no chance you're going to get arrested. How do you ensure, because I think that's important for people to know. What is my limit?
So it is voluntary. We would explain that to them. Like I said, it's educational. It's not enforcement. It's not something where we're going to sit and wait for that person. We're going to different locations throughout the night. So the plan of sitting and waiting for someone who we've seen drinking, that's not the purpose of it, or the mission for that OTS has given us the money to do that. We can't guarantee that they won't get arrested, because if they get in the car later and on their own get arrested, that's that's something that happens. But that's not the purpose of this, and we would tell them that up front.
Great. Thank you. That was really it. Thank you.
Great. Mike, I think you had some questions?
Sure. On the radio, I hear ads for, I believe the name of the company is 1-800-NO-CUFFS, and they say, don't say anything.
Okay.
But they don't say what happens afterwards. What happens if somebody does not speak or refuses to answer questions or refuses to take any of the tests?
So it's just dependent on the condition of the driver at the time and the status of their impairment. There's several, we could continue with an arrest just because someone doesn't say anything, and officer can still tell that they're under the influence. They can still continue with an arrest. They can refuse. There's different avenues that the police department has if someone refuses to submit to breath tests or blood tests. One of them being, a search warrant to retrieve the blood. But, people choose not to answer us quite a bit.
If you refuse to take a breath test, is that a potential loss of your license?
It is. It's still up to the DMV. There's a hearing that they would go to after the arrest that the officers also attend. That's up to the circumstances of that refusal are determined by a member of the DMV. Yes, and everything is captured. Body-worn cameras, the refusal, everything is seen from the perspective of the officer and then given to, or is made available for discovery when it comes to the legal process, DMV process.
Good. Thank you.
Layla, go ahead.
Thank you for that presentation and for being here tonight. My question is related also to the outreach and the education done at local establishments that sell alcohol. So I'm wondering, I know I've seen, various ads from maybe, those rideshare services that will say, oh, we have free, rides, like a free ride home, maybe around certain holiday times and things like that. So I was just wondering if that's anything that you all are sort of keeping tabs on, and maybe as, you're at those establishments, like sharing that with folks. I mean, I know it's not a service that's provided by the city or the department, but just as far as educating folks and putting that word out, if
It's not
that's
something that
that's still ongoing.
we would share, like this particular free.
Yeah.
You know, we wouldn't endorse that as the department, but we would suggest maybe it's time to take a Lyft home or Uber home or call a taxi, call a friend. It's just, again, educational so that they can realize maybe they need a ride home, maybe they don't, maybe they've, you know, they're far under the legal limit. But it's not something that we do further in regards to saying call this company or anything like that.
Okay. And there hasn't been any outreach per se, like from those companies to the department or anything like that. That's not like
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Paul?
Yes, thank you. In the past, we've been told that with the advent of things like Waze, some of these DUI checkpoints are highlighted. Is that still an issue?
We have seen that when we're out at the DUI checkpoints. We have seen it show up. It shows up like police activity.
Okay.
It seems we still get a lot of people coming into the checkpoint, so I guess maybe it doesn't deter them. I'm not sure.
And then you mentioned rideshare. I was also in the impression that with the increased amount of rideshare, that it had an impact. Do you think that's effective, or?
I think so.
It's nice to know it's working. Thank you.
Thank you. Romick, and I know you've got a personal connection with that accident that was just shown in the video as well.
Yeah. First, Officer Hensley, thank you so much for that presentation. Before I get into that, just had a question about DUI fatalities and kind of tying in with what happened in that incident with that innocent person passing away. Is there any statistics or any type of estimate on a driver who's under the influence killing someone who's absolutely innocent? Is there any? Do they collect statistics on that of how many innocent people pass away in the hands of someone who's under the influence, or does anything like that exist?
Yeah, I mean, as far as how many fatal traffic collisions
fatal traffic
involved.
collision. Yeah.
Yeah.
Innocent versus the actual DUI driver.
Oh,
If that makes sense.
I see what you're saying. Like the driver that passed away was not the DUI driver. I don't know if they do. I know that the National Highway,
You're getting back up.
maybe Lieutenant Frommer may know.
And I told them ahead of time, don't be afraid to call on me. But just to let you know, they do collect those statistics and they are available, but understand that's through a nationwide level.
Sure.
Not on a department scale. But they would have that through the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, but they do keep track of, because unfortunately there are times where there's a fatal DUI collision where both drivers are DUI. So
Yeah.
they do keep track of, because unfortunately there will be an autopsy on somebody that does pass away, and they can tell whether or not they were sober or not. But they do keep those statistics.
Okay.
They're
Appreciate
about, just
that.
keep in mind, they're about 2 years behind because the amount of work it takes to accumulate that on a national scale.
Yeah, because I think it would be interesting for the community to know, like, how many innocent people die, in the hands of someone who's under the influence. So just to wake people up just a little bit. So, and just kind of continuing the conversation, I know Chair Coombs briefly mentioned it. I was at the scene of the accident. The one that was just shown in the video actually reached out to Lieutenant Former and James that night, and it was just, I saw the sirens in the distance. It was like 2 blocks away from where I live. As soon as I saw the accident, I was with one of my good friends driving, and I'm like, there has to be someone that hasn't survived that. So as soon as we stopped, saw the body, saw that experience, and it was just heart-wrenching just to experience that. But I mean, it's too common, and it happens way too much, and there's no reason why that young man should have been driving that fast. But and I have to also say that you guys did a DUI checkpoint from going westbound on Glen Oaks and Alameda, and I was coming home from a movie with one of my friends, and actually drove through it, which was kind of fun. He was a little then taken back. He's like, "Are you really going to drive through this?" I'm like, "Absolutely. I want to see what a great job they're doing." So again, the professionalism, the wonderful work that you guys are doing. Thank you so much for doing that. Everyone's kind and courteous. Had a great conversation with one of the officers there. So thank you for all that work. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And I think Officer Hensley, I think I met you a couple of years ago. Actually, my son was with me, and you and two other officers, motor officers, were together. And at the time, after talking with you and the other officers, my son made the comment after you left that he's like, you know what, I wouldn't mind getting pulled over by those people. So not that I want him to get pulled over for any reason or do anything that needs to get pulled over, but he just really appreciated that time interacting with you and the other officers. I don't know if you've got the information on this, but hopefully we can go there. The OTS grant, you said the last year's grant was $190,000. Is that correct?
This year's grant.
This year's grant is $190,000.
Yeah, and I'll give you the information on it. So it was 120,000 the previous year. The current year, the federal fiscal year runs from October through the end of September.
Okay.
So the current grant cycle we're in that started this last October is 190,000.
Great.
But we had a $70,000 increase.
Okay, I'm curious, for the DUI checkpoints, I'm wondering if that grant covers all of the activities specifically related to some of the specific outreach efforts that the department's doing. So for example, does that grant cover the DUI checkpoints, the education programs that are put together? I'd already heard about the equipment and everything as well, or is there additional departmental budget that needs to go in to kind of make that piece of the department's operations whole?
Yeah, if you're offering to speak to the chief about giving me more money, please, I will be an advocate for that. No, we do have department funds for specialized equipment and outreach. However, what we try to do is through the grant, it breaks it down into very specific categories. The DUI checkpoints, it covers all of that, but we do have on top of that additional funding to do educational opportunities, which they prefer to be public speaking engagements with larger crowds, if we can make that happen. Things changed since COVID. Nobody wanted to come out and congregate, and we're still seeing a little bit of a struggle to try to get those larger audiences together. We're hoping to get back to that point. But then also with the equipment, as he mentioned, very instrumental from OTS because this is very expensive equipment. And they will supplement this through the funding as well as pamphlets, the educational pamphlets that we hand out for DUI, impaired driving, reckless driving. That's also something that we can get with that funding.
Great. And the reason I ask is because we often see and hear concerns raised about the department's budget and what money is going towards what. So I just really appreciate hearing that this money is coming in from the outside to help with that. I'm curious as to how often do you come across repeat offenders, DUI repeat offenders in the work that you're doing?
So we do, unfortunately, and we also get part of the OTS grant. We signed up to get what we call a DUI hot sheet. It's just directly from the DMV about local offenders who have multiple DUI offenses. So we make that available to all of our patrol officers, not just our traffic and motor officers like Officer Hensley, but department-wide. And we keep that in roll call, and it's available for all of us to see who our offenders are. But the good news for us in Burbank is it's a small list.
Great.
Unfortunately, countywide, it's a very large list.
Okay, appreciate that. One of the things that I'd heard in Officer Henley's presentation as well, I did not realize this, first time I'd ever heard of it, is that I know that there's a criminal court process that's involved, and there's the attorneys, and then there's the 1-800-NO-CUFFS, or whatever that may be, or whatever the programs are for defense attorneys. What I didn't realize is that there's a parallel DMV process that reviews traffic. Can you talk a little about how the DMV process reviews traffic accidents and the role that our officers play in that hearing process?
Absolutely. Do you want me to handle this, or you want to talk about it? Okay, so it's called an admin per se hearing with the DMV, and the admin per se just pertains to the .08 blood alcohol content level, the legal, what is considered legally driving impaired. That's the legal law. The hearing is done separate of a court matter. So they'll have the prosecution through their local court system, but they have more of an administrative hearing with the DMV to decide whether or not to suspend a driver's license. I know there were several questions about what happens on a refusal, what happens if you are .08 or above. If you refuse, the DMV can outright suspend your license up to a year or longer. When you're determined to be .08 or above, your license can be suspended for a year or longer as well. However, through the DMV, what they do is they do have the option they can say I get arrested for DUI, they could suspend my license for a year, but still in the course of employment, I can still operate a motor vehicle. However, outside of employment, I cannot drive because my license is technically suspended. And all of that is done through the DMV. Police officers are the primary witness in that. You have the offender who also has the opportunity to have legal representation at that hearing. And then you have what's called a DMV hearing officer, who is trained specifically to do these hearings and make a determination. But it's sort of a mini legal proceedings,
Okay. And it's completely independent of the criminal proceeding.
completely independent.
How much officer time is spent in this admin per se hearing process in a year, would you say?
So officers that make numerous DUI arrests can spend a lot of time dealing with this. So you have to prepare for this for the court hearing. Sometimes there's called a written declaration that you may be required to submit in lieu of showing up to an actual hearing, an in-person hearing. So there's some prep time and there's some actual work time spent on this. But it is dependent upon how many DUI arrests that an individual officer will make. Officer Hensley gave you the great statistics that we're making over 300 DUI arrests a year. But that could be spread out over anywhere from 20 to 40 or more officers.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions from commissioners? Mike, go ahead.
In the arrest, like you had 38 during the last quarter, I guess, or last month or so. Is that mostly, or I'm not looking for specific numbers, but is that mostly people from Burbank or people from outside of Burbank that are arrested?
Right, and it's a mixture. I could tell you that we do have local residents arrested as well as from the outside. And we have local drinking establishments, but we also have people that will go to outside the city drinking establishments returning to their residence who can be stopped and arrested for DUI. But it is a mixture of both.
In kind of following that, I don't know if there's records that are kept, but is it generally people coming from bars versus people coming from like a private party at a home or something like that?
Great question. We would love to have better statistics on that, but again, as Officer Hensley had that conversation with you, because you brought up, there's a lot of attorneys out there that say don't talk to the police if you get stopped for DUI. So unfortunately, we only get the information from the drivers that are willing to speak with us. So we don't have very good statistics on that. But I can tell you from the people that do discuss this with us, it's either we see more of a restaurant or a bar versus somebody's private residence or like a house, somebody drinking at a party, a local party.
Officer Hemsley mentioned before, I'm not even aware. I know in North Hollywood there's a bar owners association. I don't know if we have anything like that in Burbank. You mentioned that you do outreach at bars trying to identify or give some people information. Is there a bar association that our police speak to, reaffirming the responsibilities of the bar owner with traffic, and the options that they might offer?
I don't know if we have a bar association. I'm unaware if we do.
Yeah, and I'll touch it. So most of that's done through ABC and we have a special investigations detail that does operations inside of the bars for underage, like selling or over-serving, selling to minors and so forth, but they do that in conjunction with ABC. So as far as the traffic division, we're a little bit disconnected from the actual work within the bars. But that is done with, the police department does have a connection with that, but through ABC.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
I think both of you gentlemen.
Great. Paul, you had another question?
Thank you. At one time, I was told that the advent of the body cam or the dash cam helped a lot with the follow-up, because people that initially were going to argue it would see the camera and all of a sudden realize it's easier just to be cooperative. Is that true, or is that, I guess what I'm trying to say is it another avenue where the body cam and the dash cam pays for itself administratively?
It pays for itself. It's a fantastic tool. Chief Albanese was instrumental in bringing that to us, but even on the subjects that refuse to cooperate, take the field sobriety test to provide samples, we have the video evidence, because unfortunately, when you have a certain level of impairment, it's obvious to everybody. So it's very helpful and very instrumental, even in subsequent prosecution, if we have people that don't want to comply or submit to all of the testing. But that body cam footage is excellent tool.
So any other questions from commissioners? So, yeah, thank you for that. So, Officer Hensley and Lieutenant Firmer, thank you so much for presenting this evening. We really appreciate this information. I learned some new information as well, and thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
So the next item up that we have is presentation, discussion, and recommendations, if any, on the draft of the 2024 AB 41 report on military equipment prepared by the City Council, and we have Sergeant Stephen Turner joining us. Sergeant, welcome again.
Good evening, Commissioners. How are you?
Great.
Can we bring up the slide? There we go. So good evening. Once again, this is our second year doing this. I'm Sergeant Steve Turner, Public Information Officer, as well as with our professional standards. This evening, we'll be discussing Assembly Bill 481. It's our military equipment, the report on our military equipment, what it is and how it pertains to our department and our community. A little bit of the background is Assembly Bill 481 was introduced to increase transparency and accountability. Is at the heart of it. It defined what constitutes military equipment. In this case, in this Assembly Bill, it has it into 15 categories. On September 30th of 2021, Governor Newsom signed into law AB 481, which went into effect January 1st of 2022. Some of the requirements and what Assembly Bill 481 means to the department is the City Council had to approve the military equipment use policy, and that happened in April of 2022. They had to approve the equipment in our inventory. We publish a report on our website, and each year we hold a community meeting to allow our community to ask questions about the report. We actually have that scheduled for the 21st of next month, our next commission meeting, and we'll be able to do that. So we're going to go over, got a little ahead of myself. So the military equipment policy, what this report includes is the description of the type of equipment we have, the purpose of the equipment, the authorized use, the equipment's lifespan, and the fiscal impact to include maintenance. It also includes a summary of any utilization we have of that military equipment. And again, we're going to go over some of our, in the following slides, we're going to go over some, not all, but a majority of our equipment and some of the main pieces that we utilize. The first one we'll discuss is the unmanned remotely piloted ground vehicle, also known as a SWAT robot. It's called the SWAT robot because only SWAT team members who have been trained on this robot can use it. And it is exactly that. It's a robot that's remote controlled with audio and video capabilities. It has the unique track and tire system you can see there. They call them the flippers. It can navigate over stairs, through doorways, debris, what have you. It can be used to clear buildings, open doors, deliver equipment, just to name a few. Oftentimes, if we have a critical incident where we have to clear a house, get people out of the house, and to believe that that home is safe, we'll send that robot in prior to sending personnel in, just to ensure that the robot doesn't see anything, get a better layout of the house, and it's a great tool to have. It was not deployed operationally in 2023. The unmanned remotely piloted aircraft, better known as the drone. Similar to commercial grade drones, this drone is capable, it's again remote controlled. It gives us real-time footage to the operator on the ground utilizing the controls. It can be operational. One of the benefits of it is if it's out in the field, it can be operational within minutes. And it acts as an asset alongside our helicopter. We currently have 5 operators that are trained to use the drone. The training is pretty extensive. It includes FAA testing as well as department testing. The drone was deployed 20 times in 2023. Most of the time, the drone's utilized in major traffic collision scenes to get overall photos of it, major crime scenes, overall photos, that day of those incidents. It was also utilized at such events like Starlight Bowl, Holiday in the Park, the Mayor's tree lighting ceremony as an overwatch, additional eyes in the sky. A couple of the times we used it, in May, the officers got a call that somebody up in Wildwood Canyon was calling for help. A hiker up on the trails had heard it. So officers were immediately able to not only get to the scene, start checking the trails, they were to have the extra asset of the drone up there to check the trails, get into the, the valleys and see. Thankfully, nobody appeared to be in distress or in need of assistance after interviewing several people on the trails, maybe misheard something. In July, there was at one of our local routes, we had a robbery. Individual fled from the supermarket location and into the surrounding neighborhood. Officers quickly set up a perimeter. We had the drone available to us. The drone ultimately located that suspect and directed officers to where that suspect was located and where they were able to safely take that suspect into custody. So a couple varied ways it's been used. Next is the Armored Personnel Carrier, or as we call it, the Bearcat. Bearcat's a term given to it by Lenco Industries. I believe they're out of Massachusetts. I don't want to say the industry standard, but they're very popular within law enforcement world, one of the main ones. Bearcat is an acronym for Ballistic Engineered Armored Response Counterattack Truck. Just like it offers a high level of ballistic protection in critical incidents, such as barricaded suspects, active shooter scenarios. We could conduct rescue operations, and again, just high level ballistic cover as well as maneuverability with this vehicle. The vehicle was deployed 4 times in 2023. A couple of examples I'll go over is in February, officers were dispatched to a residence where a male and female were heard yelling. As officers approached, the male in the window there said, "If the officer's getting any closer, I'm going to shoot you." So obviously negotiations ensued. They started talking to the individual, engaged in conversation with that person. Another officer was able to bring the Bearcat to the location, able to, again, to provide that additional cover, while one of our crisis negotiators was able to stay in that Bearcat and negotiate further with this individual, ultimately having that individual safely come out of the house, taken into custody without warning. The female in question in this particular incident was his sister, who was found later in the rear of the house safely. She had been in contact, and officers knew that with dispatch throughout this incident, so they were aware. In November, Glendale Police Department had a pursuit which ended in our city. Glendale PD officers quickly pinned that vehicle in with their police cruisers. However, the subject wasn't complying, wasn't listening to what they were saying. Again, we were able to have one of our officers deploy the Bearcat, pull right up, right, with that cover, pull right up to that vehicle, pin it to the front so that vehicle wouldn't flee again, and continue negotiations. Glendale was ultimately able to resolve that situation without incident as well. And then in December, just real recently, assisting one of our neighboring cities, Pasadena. Pasadena had a multiple location search warrant, simultaneous search warrant at multiple locations. They requested our assistance of our SWAT team. So our SWAT team, utilizing the Bearcat, went out, served a search warrant at one of the locations, and were able to get everybody out safely. So a couple examples of how the Bearcat, and also the Bearcat's also, we've seen it at Fire and Police Service Day, National Night Out, events like that as well. People get an up close look at it, climb on it, see what it's really like, how it operates. The command and control vehicle, the mobile command post. It is a fancy way of saying that it's an RV outfitted with some special equipment, right? It is able to provide the department with a mobile base of operations. It contains equipment to assist various types of field and special events. It serves as a backup communication center to, in the event our dispatch center was to fail, or they had to do maintenance on the computers in there, or for whatever reason, we have this mobile command post could set up right there in the parking lot adjacent to the department and run 911 right out of there. It's also deployed during, I know they've talked about like natural disasters, such as the Latuna fire back in 2017. I was part of that command post up by in the Castaway parking lot, as well as prolonged investigations. Some of these higher-end investigations, homicides and such, take a long time to process with a lot of different elements going into that, and it provides an area for teams to congregate, to meet, you know, inclement weather, whatever the case may be. But it's a great tool to have. It was not deployed operationally in 2023. The noise flash device, you would probably commonly refer to as the flashbang, is just that. It's a device that creates a bright flash and a loud sound. The purpose of it is to disorientate whoever they're throwing, wherever that item is being deployed. Distract, temporarily incapacitate dangerous suspects by overwhelming their senses of hearing and vision. Again, only authorized and used by our SWAT team, and it was not discharged operationally in 2023. Chemical agent delivery device. Again, this is a photo of some of the devices that we have. These are CS and OC chemical agents. They're designed to cause discomfort and are deployed to control an individual or groups of individuals who are engaging or about to engage in violent behavior. The difference between CS and OC are in their chemical makeup, predominantly. CS is a synthetic and OC is made from natural compounds found in chili peppers, since that's where you hear the term pepper spray. Only SWAT personnel are authorized to deploy these items. Only SWAT. None of these items were discharged operationally in 2023. Unlike the previous slide, the MK9 Stream Aerosol is a chemical agent device that can be deployed by officers, not just SWAT. It's an easy-to-use trigger handle similar to a small fire extinguisher and will deliver short bursts of OC. It utilizes either a long stream, or you could even attach this wand attachment to it. This is unique to get into like under a doorway if someone's barricaded inside of a bathroom or into a car or whatever it is, and it's very direct. The nice thing about OC2 is it's the decontamination portion of it. It's non-existent. It's a vapor. After a few minutes, it's gone, whereas CS, you'd have to do a whole decontamination of a location if used. The aerosol was utilized twice in 2023. Last January, a year ago, the officers got a report of residential burglary in progress. Before they got there, the suspects fled into an adjacent home or into an adjacent yard. They set up a perimeter. They started searching. Lo and behold, there was evidence to suggest that they might have crawled underneath the neighbor's crawl space under their house. There was evidence, and the crawl space door had been moved. Obviously, we had our canine capabilities. We had officers, but not an ideal situation to deploy a canine into, not an ideal situation to deploy officers into. So what they did is they went around some of the vents under the house and just deployed some of the OC spray, and sure enough, one of the suspects started coughing, gave up, and took that suspect into custody without any further incident. So worked out great in that incident. Later that same January, actually, there was an individual. The original call was somebody armed with a knife breaking into the mailboxes at one of our local post offices. Officers arrived. The guy continued to brandish the knife, fled from the officers and took a spot up on top of a wall. It was a unique situation. They negotiated. The individual finally came down off of the wall, where they continued to negotiate. However, that individual wouldn't put down the knife. Ultimately, the OC was deployed, caused him to drop the knife, give up, called toward the officers without further incident. The kinetic energy weapon, also known as the pepper ball launcher. This was not discharged operationally during 2023. As you can see, it uses a high pressure air to deliver the chemical agent. It's very similar to a pepper ball gun. On the display, they have the white ones are what they consider blast breakers. It's a polymer projectile used to breaking out residential windows and glass, so they could introduce other agents. And again, the pepper ball is just that, causes momentary explode on impact, engulfing the subject with the irritant, a big cloud of the irritant around the suspect. Kinetic energy weapon, 40 millimeter launcher. This is the Defense Technology 40 millimeter single shot launcher. It's a less lethal system that uses smokeless powder to deliver the 40 millimeter projectiles from a safe distance. And on the slide, you can see some examples of what are the projectiles that it could use. Again, the slides that you see pictured there are SWAT authorized only, for the exception of the one on the far left. The one with the blue top, is what they consider the sponge round. It's harder than a Nerf ball, but nonetheless, it's a sponge round impact weapon, and that's what our patrol officers have available to them. And it was discharged 4 times in 2023. In September, officers responded to one of our local Walgreens, unknown problem. The caller said, somebody as soon as you can. Officers arrive on scene. It's an empty parking lot with one individual, kind of not listening to the officers. They're giving him hands, seeing if he's okay, produced a knife. Right? Officers set up team, continued negotiations, back and forth. Not dropping the knife, officers were able to discharge the 40 millimeter sponge round, and suspect ultimately gave up, put down the knife, and was safely taken into custody. In November, they were getting reports of an individual sleeping on the campus of Horace Mann's school. Officers arrived, similar circumstance. Subject was very irritated, produced a knife, started threatening officers, wouldn't put down the knife, continued to threaten, back and forth negotiation. The 40 millimeter was deployed, suspect dropped the knife, and was taken into custody safely. The Burbank Police Department currently possesses 11 different items that fall under the military classification as set forth in AB 481. There are multiple layers of oversight with the use of any of these, complete use of force reports that are followed up 10 times over as well. We have our Internal Affairs Bureau, our Office of Independent Review, the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies, as well as the California Peace Officer Standards and Training to ensure that we're getting properly trained when need be. The important thing to remember about the equipment that we've gone over and the detail that's in the report is that this equipment, these tools, they save lives. As you can see, there's a couple examples I gave you. Without these tools, it'd be different outcomes or what. The equipment provides distance and time. Distance and time are the 2 crucial elements that you need in critical situations. And so we have a myriad of different tools at our disposal because we don't know what that situation is going to bring to us. We have to be ready for anything. As you can see in the report, most items aren't used, but it's doing our city an injustice if we're not prepared for the what-ifs. With that being said, that concludes the overview of our slides. And again, the 2023 report, right now the 2022 report's on our website, starting tomorrow, barring any changes or anything. We'll go ahead and get that published on our website immediately, and look forward to talking to the community about this report and these tools next month. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to ask.
Fantastic. What questions do folks have? Paul?
I appreciate you pointing out something that I've repeatedly said is that these are all defensive pieces of equipment. They're not designed for any type of aggression. They're all diffusing. What is the time frame it takes for the personnel carrier, the Bearcat, to get out from being called?
A drive time from the station. Most of our officers, our SWAT team, as you know, it's and in the Bearcat, it's not just SWAT personnel. We've trained several of our officers as well, but it's just drive time depending on the location. You know, if you're talking something off of, Pass and Oak versus an event happening off of Magnolia and Glen Oaks, so the Bearcat stays at is stored at our station.
I also appreciate the fact that you pointed out its value at community events, positive interaction with children and people that might be interested.
It's usually a big hit at one of those events.
Ironically, Captain Cornelius and I today were at a presentation about bears, and I was wondering if there's been any training with the 40 millimeter for the rubber round for wildlife.
We haven't yet, something we can discuss. I know we have annual training on the 40 millimeter sponge
I
round.
got him out of his
could
chair. I didn't mean to do
I could
that,
feel the
sir.
senses.
I'm giving him a hook. So I'll speak to that. For a variety of reasons, the 40 millimeter is not a good platform for
Too
use
hot,
with the
too
bear.
much?
No, it's a single shot. We have a policy mandate to go retrieve the round after it's been expended. So if any of you would like to go into a bush after we just hit an angry bear with a 40 millimeter round, I'll be happy to take you up on that. I have past experience at my previous agency where we dealt with bears quite a bit. We used beanbag shotguns, and they were very effective, and they trained the bears very well. So that's something we've discussed. It may even be looking at something like a pepper ball platform if it comes to something where we need to start hazing the bears, because we have seen more of them here.
Yeah, this gentleman was discussing, was it Mammoth Lakes?
Yes.
And some of the things that have taken place, and they seem to have, the rubber rounds seem to
Yes.
encourage them to leave.
Yes.
Without harming anybody.
It takes 1 or 2 times, and they get the message pretty quickly.
Thank you.
Other questions? Ann, go ahead.
Sorry, curiosity. With so much emphasis on how, first of all, one, I really love that you mentioned that this is about distance and time.
Yes.
This is saving lives. It's not to be offensive. And I think that's great and something that I think we all should be more aware of. Second question was, with so much of this equipment not being used, that's a positive, but not being used during the year, is there a commitment that has to be made to ongoing training nevertheless?
So a lot of the equipment that when I say not used operationally,
Right.
a lot of the equipment, however, will be used during training, whether with our SWAT team or department training throughout the year.
Okay.
Mike,
Thank
go ahead.
Thank you for your presentation. The listing for this report seems very, very similar to the listing from last report. Has anything changed?
Nothing, not from last year's report to this report, no new equipment has been added. If we do, there's going to be, I believe there's a bid out for looking to purchase a couple drones. But those will, the items that we purchase once, and the multi-launch, the 40 millimeter multi-launch, as you see, ours is a single use, like Captain Cornelius was talking about. There's one that has, I think, is it 5 or 6 on the multi-launcher? 2, 2. I'm thinking of the drum one. But once we have those items purchased in our possession, they'll be included on the next report.
I'm not sure how the accounting is done. Are the items that are listed here in a separate category in the budget for the police department?
I would, no.
It's- And, boy, I think we have a friend coming up here. The other part is, do we normally budget for items that might be in there?
Often, a lot of the items that are included in this report are purchased through grant funding or similar. Some of the other items that expire are already in our budget. For example, some of the chemical agents that have possible 5-year shelf life, it's already included. Anything that we purchase new, whether through grant funding or otherwise, has to go through an approval process.
Great, thank you, sir.
So,
I'm going to add a couple things in on the budgetary part of that.
Thank you.
So some of our higher dollar items, especially when we're considering like vehicles, Bearcat, the mobile command post, those were grant funded. There's a depreciation process with those for replacement down the road, but it was not a line item out of the budget. Things that we use on a more general basis, such as some of the munitions he discussed, are less lethal platforms. Those are part of the department budget. There is an annual budget for those items that we track, and we use the items. Most of the things have a 5-year shelf life, so we make sure we're using them operationally or in training on a cycle so that we're replacing about 20% of that product every year, so that at the end of 5 years, we've replaced everything, and we're able to keep that cycle going. And we're not having to panic to buy one bulk in buy the entire inventory for 1 year. So that is an ongoing budget cycle for most of those. But some of the high dollar items, single purchases, a lot of those have been grant funded.
Great.
And many of the chemical agents, as they're getting ready to expire, are used for training.
Yes.
Great. Ann has a question.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Just one more. I see the word military equipment and I think, wow, it's from the military. Can any of this equipment be obtained from the military? In other words, does the military have a different shelf life than us? Like their stuff expires or needs to be no?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
I was trying to think of ways to avoid high expenditures and maybe get the free stuff. No.
Yeah, probably a more appropriately named would have been specialty equipment, as opposed to military equipment.
And that actually, I mean, going back a little bit, that's actually part of where the legislation around this law came from, is because at one point there was surplus military equipment that was coming to law enforcement agencies. And if I recall, I don't think we have any surplus military equipment that actually comes to the department.
No, we do not have any.
Ironically, the up-armored vehicle was a police vehicle that the military stole. It went to the military, so it was vice versa. But it was first designed, as Sergeant Turner pointed out, for officer safety.
Right.
Didn't they discuss last year too that the term military is defined by the legislature?
Correct.
And it may not match reality,
Right. So, and the legislation has only been in place for a few years now, right? And this
January
is
22.
Yeah, so this is the second report, if I recall. So we're kind of on the cutting edge to be able to review this with you. Thank you. I actually was going and looking for since it was listed as a draft on the agenda, I was looking for typos to help fix, and the only typo I could find is that the report itself wasn't listed as draft, and you were talking about it going up on the website possibly as early as tomorrow. So that's fantastic. I just wanted to lift up and just appreciate in particular the equipment's important, but the rate of deployment is also critically important as well.
Yes.
So I just really appreciate having that. It makes sense that the drone is used 20 times in the year and everything, whereas the Bearcat's only used minimally. One of the things the work that I do in a related area, I've been on call-outs where there have been folks from my department out with various law enforcement agencies as well. And sometimes I'll throw this out there. Sometimes we'd run into a situation where some other departments, and I won't name departments, but some other departments would bring out their equipment just to, for lack of a better description, play with it and get it out there in the field. This report was really clear about when it's deployed, it's being used for work purposes and everything. Is it safe to say that we don't have that situation going on in Burbank where any of the equipment's coming out just to try it out for the fun of it? Or
No,
Okay.
we do not have the situation, other than like we talked about on display for the community
Right.
to see at our national night out and the like.
I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. I actually have no other questions. It's a solid report. Romit, go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Chair Coombs. Sergeant Turner, thank you so much for that presentation. So in regards to the level of effectiveness when it comes to in regards to the level of effectiveness in regards to the inventory you guys are using, is there ones that are like more favorable to the department in regards to like level of like depending on what case it is or,
Favorable would be a difficult word to say
Sure.
because each situation is different.
Different.
So the best tool is the one that's the right for that moment, right? It might not be something we've used in years as opposed to something we use all the time.
Sure.
So that would be unfortunately, that'd be the best way I could answer that for you.
Okay. Thank you.
Layla?
Yeah, just a quick question, and this is more like anecdotal, I guess.
Yeah.
So just wondering between, again, it's only the second year of the report, and thinking back to last year's presentation and last year's report, I don't, to my mind, I'm not hearing like a huge difference in terms of, it was deployed many more times, this particular item, or many fewer times, this particular item this year. Did you just see any kind of trends, or like, is there an anticipation that after doing these for a few years, you might evaluate, we don't really use that much, and this serves that purpose and this other purpose, it's suitable for
Yeah,
more
we're-
situations that we may reevaluate and that kind of thing, or just you're seeing anything.
We
so
can
far.
absolutely look at that. Look at the uses last year compared to this year. I didn't see anything notable. But definitely, the department ourselves, the manufacturers of this equipment are always analyzing, our law enforcement as a whole across the nation. There's always different new technology coming out, and everybody's always trying. But definitely something we could look at and see. Again, the unfortunate thing is we might have a piece of equipment that we don't use for 6 years, and all of a sudden we're going to need it. So that's the dance that we have to do with it.
I'm just realizing, because I remember us having a conversation about this last year as well. Tasers are no longer part of this report, or they never were. Because for some, did we include tasers in the discussion last year? For some reason, I remember a
think so, no.
conversation. Okay, all right, don't worry about that. I know the report, when we reviewed it last year as well, because of the new legislation, the department spent a lot of time looking at what the requirement of the law was to report out on, to make sure it's really specific to that. As mentioned, I really appreciate the frequency of deployment being in the report and everything. Has the department considered, or has there been any discussion or consideration of adding things to the report that go beyond what the state's asking for, specifically like things like what is the training regimen around the use of the equipment? Or as I was mentioning before, that I've been involved with other departments that have deployed equipment just for the sake of deploying it. We can ask those questions here, but I'm wondering if the department would want to consider adding any additional information to the report to really be clear about that going forward.
So I'm not sure, and that's a fair question. So this is still new. So last year was our maiden voyage. So this is year 2. We have looked at other departments, how they what they put on their website and their presentations, and I think we do a really good job. So be mindful of this, and I was going to share this during the announcements, is that when we have our community engagement meeting and then we ultimately present it to City Council, every municipality in LA County is on the same timeline. So we have a lot in common. We want to make sure that we provide all that information so that they're to be transparent as what was intended by the legislation. So based on what we know and what we've done, consulting with the city attorney, I don't know if there's a need to add more.
Okay. Makes sense. Paul?
And especially talking the chemical agents, and we discussed training. I know in my experience, in order to carry the chemical agent, we had to, I guess, get hit by it, sprayed by it, so that we knew the impact. And I'm assuming that that's a similar experience with your training?
Yes, all our officers in the academy are exposed to CS gas, pepper spray, not annually, but we have training where the officers are exposed again later on.
So they know the impact of what they're putting out there, and I think that has an effect on the deterrent and their attempt to talk someone into not asking me to deploy this. Because
Yes.
essentially that's what it is.
Yes, correct.
Great. Any other questions, comments, or recommendations? All right, I really appreciate your time this evening, Sergeant Turner. Thank you for the presentation, and we do look forward. It's on the agenda. We've got to go over agenda items in a little bit, but I'm looking forward to when we can do this work with the community next month. But we'll get that agendized and set up in just a few minutes. Chief, general announcements from the police chief. Brief announcements regarding upcoming events and/or items of note related to the police department. Chief, welcome.
Thank you, and good evening, Chair and Police Commissioners, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
So let's make 2024 a really good year. I just want to note on Officer Hensley's presentation, this was his maiden voyage in this setting. So he volunteered for it, he did the PowerPoint, and he did an outstanding job. Now, Sergeant Turner has done this before, and I'll give him a B+, but our folks did a really good job. You can tell that they know what they're doing. They're conversant with our policies, our practices, and our equipment. So I wanted to acknowledge them. I want to make an introduction. Viviana, can you stand up? This is our new police administrator. So Viviana Garzon, and she is replacing Police Administrator Courtney Paget, who is now the Assistant City Manager. So that's a big, big deal for Courtney, and this is a big, big deal for Viviana. And Viviana so far is knocking it out of the park, and she is going to be a great asset to our team. So welcome. As far as some announcements, tomorrow night we have 3 recruits graduating from the LASD Academy, and that'll be at the Star Center. We have Luis Gomez, and what's important about Luis is that he was a police cadet here. So you've probably seen Luis, graduate from CSUN, so he is graduating. We have Andrew Honanian and Christian Parks. So that'll be tomorrow night. Myself and Captain Cornelius will be there for that graduation, and it'll be at the Star Center. I don't know if you will be getting invitations to the Burbank Police Department. Actually, it's the Burbank Police Foundation that will be hosting the Recognition and Awards Luncheon. And that will be on Tuesday, February 13th at 11:30. It'll be at the Burbank Marriott Hotel. So this is recognizing our folks for, typically it's the year prior, but the last time we had this event was in 2019. We had sent out the invitations for 2020, and everything got derailed with COVID. So we're going to recognize some folks going back to those years and some recent incidents, and it is a big, big deal, so you will be getting an invitation, so be looking for that. The Met vehicle was launched. We had here at City Council a couple weeks ago. So this has been a 3.5-year journey waiting for this vehicle that has some unique features to it. But you'll recall, because we've talked about it for 3.5 years and it's finally here, is it has a safety compartment in the back seat for the subject being transported. And then there's an area for officer, clinician, family member to sit next to them when they are transported. So you will see it out in the field here in the near future. So this is a big acquisition for the police department. The city council was very gracious in underwriting that purchase, and it is finally here, and it's been worth the journey. Chair Coombs already mentioned it. We have the homeless count on the 23rd, so I know Chair Coombs, Hukobian, and Paul, are you on the homeless count also? So you'll be with Sergeant Turner, so you can provide a critique of his presentation, and you'll have a couple of our Met officers. Our Community Academy begins February 8th, and that'll go till late April when it concludes. And just to close it out is to talk about AB 481, this is more for the community, folks know what the process is. So this is all required, mandated by legislation as far as how all of this is unveiled to the public. So tonight, we introduced it to the Police Commission, and it'll go on the website. There is a community engagement meeting that is required within 30 plus days after the document has been published on the website. So we deliberately sunk it to a police commission session that we did last year. Technically, we are supposed to oversee the community engagement meeting, but it just makes sense that we collaborate with our police commission. So that meeting will be on February 21st. That'll be on a Wednesday. It'll be in this building, City Hall, Chambers. That'll start at 1700, 5 p.m., and it will be essentially the same presentation. You will recall last year that we actually had a handful of community members that came out, engaged, asked questions. Depending on how long that goes, we'll break, and we'll go into our police commission session. So I have nothing else to report out.
Great. Chief, thank you. All right, so with that, we move into our introduction of agenda items for future meetings. I want to draw, I think everybody's got a copy of it, but I want to review what we currently have on the dashboard. We've identified these items to be agendized, but we just have to tie them into specific dates. So we have earmarked for the February dashboard, and actually, I take it back. When we were talking about this earlier, we do need to make sure that we've got these properly agendized Some of them, yeah, we need to make sure some of them are properly agendized. So for February, we were earmarked for homeless engagement, and as discussed, the military equipment community engagement meeting. For April, we've earmarked the presentation on encryption of the radio channels and effect on police and fire responses. For without dates on them, we have a presentation and discussion of the city's 2035 general plan and how it relates to Burbank Police Department. We also have the zero bail measure and its effect on the city of Burbank. Update on AB 2147, the Freedom to Walk Act. Presentation and discussion of an update of the 2023 to 2025 strategic plan report. And this is an important one because this was actually agendized in October, but we didn't get it. We didn't actually get it on the calendar. There was a motion that I had made, seconded by Commissioner Wenzel, to discuss the creation of an ad hoc subcommittee comprised of the chair, vice chair, and secretary to focus on a mission statement based on information provided in the normalizing of racial equity in local government and mission vision goals of commission trainings. It's a lot of words to basically say we're going to review a couple of trainings that we had attended, but we need to set up the ad hoc subcommittee to work on that. So I'd like to go ahead and start by making a recommendation or making a motion for the February meeting that we ask the police department to provide a presentation and review of homeless engagement, specifically looking at the department's policies and procedures around homeless engagement, statistics and results of outreach with the homeless community in Burbank. Through that, we can also report out on our piece. Okay, so I'm going to motion that. Paul's seconding that. Sherry, did that help with the language? Perfect. All in favor of agendizing that for February? It is unanimous here. Any opposition? Okay, and no abstentions. And then so the second item is, and now do we need to agendize the community engagement meeting, or is it already on calendar? We don't need to formally.
No, it's already on calendar.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what you did last time was, if there were any recommendations made by the public, you were going to keep it as a placeholder, that if you wanted to make any recommendations to change the report. But
Gotcha.
that's up to you if you want to do that.
Okay, so what that would be is this is actually for the meeting. This isn't for the community engagement meeting. Right, so to kind of take care of this one, I'm going to go ahead and motion that we add a review of the military equipment community engagement meeting to the next meeting to review in case there's any recommendations or adjustments as suggested by the public. So I'm going to go ahead and motion that. Paul seconds that. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? No opposition? Okay, so we'll move on with there. The third item that I wanted to go ahead and just put on that, just so we can take care of it, we do need to actually do this in a meeting. So I can motion that we talk about it in the meeting, and then we can then actually create it in the actual meeting. And that is the motion. This is where I get a little tripped up, because did we already approve it, or did we to talk about it? So to create the ad hoc subcommittee. So this is a motion to create the ad hoc subcommittee, which would be consisting of the chair, vice chair, secretary, to focus on the mission statement based on information provided in the normalizing racial equity in local government and missions, visions, goals, commission trainings. It's a lot of words as well. So it's a motion to have that discussion to set up the ad hoc committee.
You don't need to create another, because you already all you have to do is say, we want it for the next meeting, and you're done.
We just want to create the,
Yeah,
okay.
because you already agendized it for a future meeting. And
Okay.
You just create the meeting.
Gotcha. So, okay, so we're just adding that to the recommendation is to add that to the agenda for the February meeting so we can officially create the ad hoc subcommittee. I got it. Okay. Second on that? Second. Ann has that one? Okay, we're good. All right, any other, so I reviewed the agenda items that we have that for future items. Are there any other items that folks wanted to agendize for the February meeting? None? Okay. Are there any future agenda items that folks wanted to propose for future meetings without a date? I'll start with Romick.
Thank you, James. We're requesting a report, Jensen report on the current patrol vehicle inventory and like the status, the maintenance concerns, future purchases as electric vehicles, like a part of the conversation. So, and that's, I would say that would I would want to agendize.
Okay. So there's a motion on a presentation from the department on patrol vehicle inventory, including electric vehicles, including maintenance.
Yeah.
Usage. Okay. Do we have a second for that? Mike Elman seconds. I'm sorry, Mike Chapman seconds, excuse me. Big Mike seconds. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Any abstentions? Okay, so we're adding that. We're not putting a date on that right now. We're just adding that.
Just future,
Great.
whenever.
Okay. Paul, did you have a?
I was going to recommend a presentation of the radio, encrypted radio channels we moved up to March from April. Is that possible, or is there a reason to take them?
I do not have my annual calendar in front of me, so I hesitate to make that recommendation at this time. But
We moved it to April because it was Communications Center
Perfect.
week, but you can move it to whenever
Gotcha.
you want
Because
to talk
it
about
seems
it.
to be something that the community's concerned about immediately, and I think we came up with a wonderful happy meeting with 15 minutes, and I'd like to have an opportunity to explain that to the community. I think just the longer it takes, I think the more
So that
people make up their own versions of the story.
Gotcha. So the recommendation is to move the April agenda item to, actually, we would have to actually agendize that item and agendize it for March. Do you want to do it that way?
What do you suggest, sir?
Can I just ask a quick question? I wonder, was part of it also April because it was relatively new and we were waiting, because part of it is effect on response times and things, was part of it waiting for enough time to?
All of the above, all of the above,
Yeah.
because it was new, we wanted to get some metrics. So the path that you're on right now is fine, so whatever you want to do.
Would it be more efficient if we waited till April?
It's your call. I don't think it's going to make a difference. I really don't.
So Paul, what do you want to do?
If no one else sees urgency, then April's fine.
Okay, we'll just keep it with that right then. And then what I'll do is I'll make sure that I've got the annual calendar, the proposed calendar at my fingertips for the next meeting as well. My apologies for that. Mike?
I just wanted to check. We had a separate calendar, not of agendized items, but of a calendar of police activities during the year. I think like related to when school opens or closes or different things that may be going on. Is there anything that we need to include from that calendar on this list?
Wasn't there something actually that you had recommended that we have, talk about school safety, valet updates on all of that around the time
Yeah.
of August?
That's actually on the calendar that
Right,
we
I was
put
just
together.
more
Yeah.
closer to July because August school is already back.
Right.
It's too late. And it's always been something we thought of in September, and by then the horse is out of the barn.
So let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and motion that for the February meeting, we have the commission have a brief review of the annual calendar to look at not to specifically agendize or talk about any subjects, but specifically to review the calendar to make sure that we're capturing the topics that we want to address throughout the year with the relative time that they should be addressed. Is that okay? So I'm going to motion that. Do I have a second for that?
I second.
We'll take Ann on that one. All in favor? Any opposition? No opposition. It's unanimous. Thank you. All right, any other agenda items for tonight? Romick?
Chair Combs, I don't know if this should be agendized, but maybe like a updated report from the chief in regards to, I know there's a current vacancy after Captain J.J. Puglisi left, in regards to the process of how you go about selecting a captain, what that process kind of looks like, or doesn't need to be like a presentation, but maybe like an update?
Could it be possibly in his general
Yeah,
announcements
absolutely.
and comments? Would that be reasonable?
For clarification, in announcements or where it's agendized?
Yeah, so there's the general announcements by you. And so the question is whether it's included there. Well, I'll let you go ahead and finish your comments.
So, getting into the details would be problematic. I can do a global statement as far as the selection process. There's an application, interview, presentation, and who's qualified. I think that would be okay. Because that's going to be on the website. So, Ms. Nakamura, if she can remind me, next time I can do a snapshot of that. Is that okay in announcements? Or is that going to be agendized?
We should agendize that since it seems like it's going to be a immediate by Commissioner. We should be agendizing that as it was an issue brought
Okay.
up by a commissioner, so I think we should put that on for calendar for February.
Okay, so Romick, you want to go ahead and provide the language on that
Sure,
for?
I would say agendize a report from the department in regards to a general understanding of the selection process of when to fill in the vacancy for a captain.
Okay. Do we have a second? Paul seconds. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Any abstentions? Okay, so we've got that one added as well. Paul, did you have one more that you wanted to?
Well, I wanted to address, especially since the chief noted that one of our upcoming graduates was a prior cadet, what I would call community engagement / opportunities. Things like the community academy, the police and fire day. At this time, actually, I'm going to be leaving here, and Officer Haratoni, and I hope I'm not abusing his last name, is giving a presentation to our scout troop about the Explorer program that the police department has. I just think there's a lot of on-scene opportunities that we might be able to shine a light on if we had
So I'm trying to, is it an agenda item that you're recommending, or
possibly
is
an
it
agenda item for maybe Officer Turner or the officers who put on the community academy to express the opportunities that the department already provides for interaction with the community.
is that,
Officer Night Out, Police and Fire Day,
yeah.
just say,
So the motion is for Sergeant Turner to do a presentation on all of the outreach and engagement opportunities that the department provides throughout the year.
that works.
So that's the motion. Okay, so we're
So,
gonna.
so let's not keep it to Sergeant Turner, just,
I just meant because that was his position.
No,
Right.
I understand. Actually, there's a couple other folks that may present. And one of the things that we are trying to do as an organization is expose more people to this process and presenting. So for personal, professional development, so Turner does a fine job, but I may have someone else provide that presentation.
A B+ job, I think, is what you said.
He,
Yeah.
he knows it. Yeah, yeah.
So the reason I'm going to use our process and our order to do this. So we have a motion to have a presentation on this, and then I'm going to look for a second, and then we're going to open up for brief discussion. But it's not discussion on the merits of it; it's discussion on the logistics of agendizing the item. I want to be really clear that we're not going into the topic itself, but we need to kind of clarify some things about the motion. So we've got a motion for a presentation on this. Do we have a second? Okay, we've got a second for Mike, so I'm going to open it up for discussion. I'll go ahead and start. My understanding is that the department already does publicize its events that are going on throughout the year, so I just need clarification on is this an agenda item to talk about all the events that they're doing throughout the year that they're already publicizing in a number of different forums? Or is this to go in depth as to like the content of why they do these presentations?
Absolutely not in depth. More of an overview of what I call opportunities. And like, for instance, if you said you want to see the Bearcat or you want to see the helicopter, things of this nature, this is going to be there. A lot of people find out about these things post facto because it was in the press. But if someone was to see it, and for instance, if we said, Police and Fire Day is in May, but if you miss that, we have National Night Out in the fall, and that's another opportunity where you're gonna be able to engage with the community in this environment. And as I said, like right now, the Police Explorer program, the fact that we've had cadets have gone all the way up from scouting through the Explorer program to the CSUN and to Police Academy, that's a wonderful.
So I'm actually hearing a second possible agenda item. We're talking about the motion was to do a presentation on basically the calendar of events throughout the year of the department. But then I'm also hearing you talk about the professional development and the career development and recruitment process going from like scouts into cadets into law enforcement, which is a little bit different.
I think that would just be a faction of it, but that's not. That wouldn't be, and that's not all inclusive. But I think there are many opportunities.
So again, we can't get into discussing we're talking about agendizing the issue.
What I'm saying is that I think that the best way to promote something is to shine light on it and demystify it.
Right.
And right now, any program that people don't know about is kind of a wasted program.
So
Whether it be the buyback or whatever, these are all wonderful programs.
So poor Sergeant Turner's sweating over there as the PIO because I think that we're describing his job.
No,
just throughout the year. So we've got a motion to agendize this, and we do have a second. We were discussing it right now. I don't know if we want to get any other comment, but I'm leaning not in favor of this, but I just want to see if there's any other
How
comment
about
on
this? How about programs associated with recruitment? Because there is more depth and breadth.
Yeah.
And we just came out with a brand new campaign for sworn and non-sworn. So it is timely. So you have
Okay.
a pipeline where explorer to cadet to sworn, the path of outreaching to laterals. What programs are there? What has improved since a year ago? And I think
Okay.
we can help out on that.
So to clarify, we've got a motion and a second right now for the calendar type piece. Can I make a recommendation that we back that up, that we remove the motion, that we try to readdress it again to specifically talk about programs for recruitment? So I'm asking you to consider removing the
Well, no,
motion
I understand what you're
and
saying,
reintroducing.
I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate what the chief is saying. But for instance, the civilian academy isn't for recruiting; it's kind of for education, and I think that's an important asset to our community. So that would obviously be a big part of it, but also in teaching our citizens the other ways they can be engaged with us, or they can be more informed, or they have these opportunities to ask questions.
So go ahead, Ann.
It seems, and stop me if I'm over the rules, please. It seems like we're really talking about two things. One, new information about the process of inclusion that one can engage in from an explorer to all the way up to becoming entering law enforcement police officer. One thing, and all of the great things that are happening in our city for that. Second, a calendar of events that looks at opportunities for citizens to learn more, meet a police officer, do this, do that. And that's, I think they're separate. One is philosophy and engagement, but I'm not necessarily going to become an explorer, but I might be very interested as a citizen to say, oh, wow, that's coming up, and I'm going to put it on my schedule. Sounds like there's two separate items here.
Yeah. Layla, go ahead.
I guess just to the point about the outreach events, I feel like, every month the chief shares about what's coming up or maybe things that just recently happened. So I don't know if
It's necessary.
we just, if it's just like maybe asking for a little more information about the particular event that's coming up, or if we feel like those are not, just
So-
in the sense of if we have this meeting and we talk about it, of everything that's coming for the whole year, people are busy, people are,
Overwhelmed.
and they're not going to remember from now till June when this other thing's happening. So to me, it feels like it's maybe more effective and timely the way maybe that it's happening now, but that's just me. In
Roman,
terms of it coming every month.
Does the department have a calendar of events that you guys usually share? I'm sure you
It does, and it's updated weekly, daily, when as needed. So it's out there on social media platforms and our website. Because I'm on all these social media platforms, and I get pinged up all the time as far as what's going on.
So I'd like to recommend, Paul, if you're okay with it, I'd like to recommend that you rescind the motion that you had made and that we take another shot at it.
That's fine. I'll rescind it for the purpose of rephrasing.
Okay.
And the chief's recommendation of clarifying I don't want, he called the recruiting process, but I would say path to.
So it sounds like you're recommending you're making a motion to agendize a presentation on programs for recruitment and education in the community provided by the Burbank Police Department
I'll second that.
staff. Well, you're making the motion, and I'm going to second it for
Yes,
you.
that'll be the motion.
All right. So do we need to discuss this one any further? I hope not. All in favor?
I
Oh,
guess just
okay.
clarifying the point between, because you said recruitment and education
Yes.
versus being different than outreach, because like outreach could be interpreted as
However,
education.
we're
You know
gonna
what I'm saying?
leave it however the department chooses to define that recruitment and education piece.
Okay. Okay.
So I have a motion, I have a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Any abstentions? All right, so that passes. We just need to put together a date as to when that would happen. Did we want to include that now, or do we want to do that later?
I would think that since we have a police officer graduating that went through the program, it's kind of timely.
Okay.
That we can,
So you're right.
and obviously, February and March look like they're full, so we go move it into March, either March or April.
So let's just agendize it for, agendize it for March right now?
Works for me.
Okay, so again, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, so we'll put that on for March. All right, any other agenda items? Thank you all for bearing through that. Our meeting is concluded. Actually, before we do that, our next meeting date is Wednesday, February 21st, 2024. We will be gathering here at 5 p.m. for the community engagement meeting, and then our meeting will officially begin at 6 p.m. And with that, I adjourn this meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you.